How does the midterm election political environment compare to the one in Trump's first term when the Dems won big time? Iran is a shooting war again. Are Americans still paying attention? A new book details all sorts of wild stuff about the Trump administration's Epstein files cover up. Plus, a Republican congressman did a terrible job of faking a phone call to avoid answering questions. And I have some advice on how to do it correctly. Welcome back to the podcast for the 54% of Americans who vote for progress and want to convince their friends and family members to join our majority.
Well, Jason, President Trump ran on this, of all the things that people can attribute to whether Trump won or not, everybody agrees that the inflation issue for Biden was poisonous. And Trump made a lot of claims about how he's going to bring down prices immediately in this country. Well, we just got inflation data this morning saying it's the highest in 3 years. I think this is Rick Santelli on CNBC talking about the relationship between inflation and wages.
The index that goes back to 1913 comes in at 335. Why do I mention that? Because it's another new all-time high. After 100 and X years, we are now continually almost on a month-over-month basis moving up on the index. And if you look at the core index, same scenario except for 336. This started at 57, once again a record. You know what? I think we need to also look at real average hourly earnings. Year over year, they came in minus 0.7. And the reason I'm looking at these, because last month we turned it negative at minus 0.3, first negative number since Feb of 23. Now this now becomes the most negative number also since Feb of 23, because that was minus 1.1. And if we look at year over year weekly average hourly earnings, same scenario. It turned negative last month at minus 0.2, first time since May of 23. Now it's even more negative at minus 0.4, which equals.
So what does all that mean?
Basically, your take-home pay, even if it's like, let's say you've gone up a little bit, like you're bringing home a little bit more than you used to, your real wages, meaning when you take into account inflation, is negative, meaning the money you have and what you could buy is negative. And that is usually, that was true in the 70s, for example, like the most extreme example of this. And this is contributing to a real problem for Trump. My friend John Anzalone, the pollster, had a helpful tweet here where he pointed out that, that 2018 midterm, which was a good midterm for Democrats, Trump had a +8 on the economy back then. He's now minus 34. That could be a problem for a lot of Republicans. And I think this is why we see things like them struggling to come up with narratives about, whether James Tallarico is trans or not, because if they're talking about anything material to voters, we are looking for a pretty good November.
We're going to hear about a caravan any moment. There's going to be a caravan heading for the border any moment. The other big difference between 18 and 26, when you compare them, is that when Trump ran in 16, the economy was actually like in a pretty decent spot, as I recall. And he wasn't really running on fixing the economy. He was running on immigration. He was running on, the same sort of social issue stuff that he runs on, and basically running on grievance, right? And so then when, 18 came around, he had mismanaged a lot of stuff. He had made some mistakes where the economy wasn't doing as well as people wanted. But all in all, like, people just thought he was doing a terrible job, so it hurt him in the midterm. But as you could see, he was +8 back then on the economy. Now he's minus 34, and he ran this last time. Like, his whole justification for electing him was the economy. I remember, I think it was at his club in New Jersey where he did that press conference where he brought up like boxes of cereal and clearly things that he had not, walked into a grocery store to buy himself in a very long time, and talked about, clearly just going off the numbers that were on the podium in front of him, talking about what things cost. Like, his whole thing was stuff's going to be more affordable when I'm president. And that has clearly not happened. And so I think it's like a double punishment, right? It's the economy is bad, so they want to make a change, voters, but also the economy is bad, and you said you would make it better.
Yeah, it's three. There's a third problem, which is economy is bad, economy's bad. You said it would make it better. Third is, we've pointed this out before. Normally, even though politically we like to attach the performance of the economy to the president, often you have to stretch a little bit because sometimes it's cyclical, has nothing to do with the president. This one is so obviously tied to him because of the war. Now, he was asked about this today.
I've not seen plus the tariff volatility, plus all of that.
Yeah,
and plus the overstretching on immigration. It's all really hurt the economy.
Right. Well, he was asked about this. I've not seen this yet, but I'm sure he expressed the appropriate level of concern
about
what he's going to do about this.
Sure, the right people come into our country.
I will. I will. Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it. The numbers were great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation. You know why? Because as soon as this war is over, I can say it now. Something you didn't know. We've been taking out millions of barrels of oil. Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran, until right now. We took out the other night 22 ships, late at night with no lights, because they don't have any radar, because we blasted the crap out of it. We took out, that's why oil's $85 a barrel. I mean, you take a look. Remember when I did this, I said, look, the one bad thing will be we hit the best economy we've ever hit. And I said to my people, I had Scott, I had Howard, I had Pete, I had all of them. I had Todd in the room. I said, the one thing we have to do now, we had just hit the highest stock market in history, highest 401ks in history. Everything was going well. And I said, I hate to do this to you guys, but Iran's going to have a nuclear weapon very soon. We have to go and attack. So we hit them with the B-2 bombers.
Let me get this.
That's a crazy clip.
Yeah. What? So let me get this straight, right? We apparently have been, I assume, the United States Navy have been sneaking.
Not anymore.
Oil. Yeah, right. We've been sneaking oil through the strait, apparently, and apparently it's been working to the tune of millions of barrels. But the commander in chief just went ahead and told Iran that we've been doing that.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Why would you? That's how desperate he is to not answer a question about inflation. He'll just play a hand, which, I mean, who knows if it's even true, right? We don't even know. It could be completely made up. But assuming for a moment that it's not, imagine, you're like a naval commander. You're probably like a captain or a rear admiral, and you're assigned to that area, and then you're told, hey, keep doing that thing. That thing that you just told the enemy we've been doing, you want me to keep doing that thing? So we don't even know if what he's saying is true, but boy, you really, really want to get out of answering a question about inflation when you either make up and or disclose an ongoing classified operation.
Well, another thing he disclosed, this morning, about an hour after he tweeted about Stephen A. Smith, he tweeted about his plans to commence military operations against Iran again in a Truth Social post. And now he's confirmed that a few hours later. Now, again, I'm not sure we should be announcing ahead of time that we're attacking a country. Like we can debate whether you should attack that country. I would suggest not at this point because you don't have any definable aims. But if you are going to attack that country, maybe don't tell them ahead of time.
Who knows? I mean, usually no. But in this case, given what they hit, it appears they hit, water facilities that are for thousands of people, which is really questionable under the international law of war to begin with. So yeah, usually you would not. On the other hand, you have to think that if Iran shot down an Apache helicopter, that they had to know that there was going to be a retaliation for that.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many questions. What was that helicopter doing? Why would Iran do that? They've been, going back and forth with Israel. The Jordanian military said it intercepted 5 missiles launched from Iran. So there's just a lot going on here. Bahrain's military said it took out several Iranian drones. The Kuwaiti army said its air defenses intercepted hostile targets. So we've got a regional war going on here. Mm-hmm. And every time you think that they're about to solve this and come to a very imperfect, probably worse solution than when we started, but at least something that could stop this. Things escalate again. And I think this begs the question about like what Trump is doing. He had a testy interview with NBC. We'll get to the sort of key part of that interview in a little bit, but he is now trying to have, you always said that people who were for the Iraq war always later pretended they weren't. Well, Trump is like doing the reverse here in a weird way. He's now claiming that he never was the anti-war candidate when he ran. Let's look at this clip.
What changed? Because you insisted no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war. Why would I have built the strongest military in the world? I built our military. I inherited a terrible military. We had no equipment. We had nothing. I built a tremendous military. Biden gave a lot of it away, but it's still a relatively small portion compared to what I built.
But you said it over and over again, Mr.
Why would
President?
I build a military? Now, I didn't want to use this, but I'm doing you and everybody else a big favor. In the midst of the greatest stock market in history, in the midst of the most successful country, because as you know, in the last time we were a dead country, Kristen. I know you're a big liberal or a big progressive.
No, but I'm just a journalist.
So let me get this one straight, just so I'm clear. Even though he told us that there was going to be no new wars, it's really our fault, the American people, because we should have known when he was building up the military, which the whole thing about the military was given away and the military was in terrible condition until I came along is completely bogus and ridiculous. But let's go with his, fictional narrative for a moment, that we should have known that no matter what he said, because he was building up the military, clearly that meant he was going to use it to go to war. Why would I build up the military if not to use it to go to war?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, A, you really didn't do that. But B, if you did, traditionally that's done to avoid going to war. It's right. That's the whole point, obviously.
Well, JD Vance had an opportunity to bring some clarity here, define the war aims, help the American people understand how we land this plane. Let's hear what he had to say.
You say very close. How soon? Could the deal happen before the midterm elections?
Oh, absolutely. No, I think we're going to know a lot before the midterm elections. Look, I think that the deal could happen in the next week, but the deal could also happen months from now.
Are the Iranians stringing President Trump along, in your view?
No, I don't think so. Again, I think their system takes a long time to reach consensus.
He literally, it's like, it's all filler. If you think about the words that are coming out of his mouth, we will know a lot more by the midterm elections. A totally meaningless sentence. Of course, we'll know more. Many months will have transpired. Right. We could have a deal in the next week or in the next few months.
Yeah, like, and it's not our fault. It's Iran. They just take a long time to reach consensus.
I mean, it's just total nonsense. Even
by the way, there's a consensus in this country, a vast majority opinion, which is this is a stupid war. We should stop doing it.
Yeah,
but that doesn't seem to matter.
And that majority is growing by the day. Even Jesse Waters on Fox News is starting to crack. Let's hear from him.
Puts even more pressure on him and gives us more leverage in those negotiations.
Yeah, the president indicated that he does not want to resume major combat operations. He said if we did do that, you'd have the strait closed for another 2 to 3 to 4 months. And he doesn't want that. And he keeps saying we're very close. We're days away. And I don't know what that means. We've heard that for a very long time. Right. I mean, oil has gone down. It was closed at, I think, 89 today, but gas prices are very high. And there's a lot of people in the administration, I think, that would like to see the job finished. And others think that, we're pretty cle. But what do we know?
That has never stopped us.
Yeah.
Too bad they demonized Tesla, Jesse.
we'll continue to.
What is going on?
I don't know, but that's the closest that Jesse Waters gets to expressing any sort of frustration. It's like, well, he said one thing and another thing, and we don't really know. And then he just realizes he's come to the precipice of the only logical next thought is an actual thought of criticism, and he's not going to voice that. So he says, but what do we know? We're not there. Which I
it's amazing. I mean, that clip was less than a day ago, I'm sure. And already it hasn't aged because we're talking. He said no combat operations, and it's like, well, we just heard what we just heard. My former boss Susan Rice went on Bill Maher this week, and this is an extended clip, but I think she encapsulated, I think, as well as anybody. Maher had been previously supportive of this war. and she basically schooled him in a way that I think is very helpful, where she defined sort of where we were before this war, why it was working in its own imperfect way, and why we're in a much worse position.
Let me explain what we did and why I think it was the right thing, and why I think, unfortunately, we're really on the wrong course right now. First of all, Iran, as you said absolutely correctly, poses threats on multiple dimensions. Its missile program, its support for proxies in the region, its human rights violations. But the way it poses a direct threat to Israel, to our allies in the region, to Europe, and potentially to the larger international community is if it were able to acquire a nuclear weapon, or weapons plural. And so back in 2013, we began to try an effort without using force, but using economic pressure and sanctions that brought Iran to the negotiating table. And after 2 years of negotiations, resulted in a nuclear deal that prevented Iran from building a nuclear weapon.
Based on inspections?
Based on, not just inspections, based on taking 98% of their fissile material out of the country, shutting down their plutonium reactor, making it impossible for them to put in place the most highly sophisticated centrifuges.
And you know they weren't cheating?
We know it for two reasons.
How?
Two ways. One, the intelligence community of the United States and even Israel validated that up until 2018 when the prior president pulled out.
Not Israel.
Yes. And secondly, that they were not cheating on the Iran nuclear deal.
That's not what...
And secondly, the IAEA had, the International Atomic Energy Agency, had 24/7 intrusive inspections in all of Iran's nuclear facilities. So when the United States withdrew from the nuclear deal, the deal was being implemented fully. But even if you don't buy that...
Why wasn't if Netanyahu thought they weren't cheating, why was he so adamant to get out of the deal?
Because this is the right question. It gets back to your original point. It wasn't just about nuclear in the minds of the Israelis.
So he was lying when he said...
No, not lying.
Well, that's what he said to me. He said, but no, we don't agree. We don't believe that they're not cheating.
Because
they're going to get a weapon and we got to get it.
And when we had a mechanism in place to prevent them from getting it, he urged President Trump to get out of the deal. They got out of the deal. And what happened? Iran built up its arsenal. Now they have 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, up enough for 10 bombs. They have a sophisticated missile program. They now control the Strait of Hormuz. And they are tanking the global economy as a consequence. And what have we done? We went to war, and we have not either dealt with the nuclear program or verifiably dealt with the missile program or the proxy problem. We've made it work.
You know, she's so skilled at being diplomatic that what she doesn't say about Netanyahu there, she avoids saying that he was lying.
Yeah.
And she says, well, there were other reasons. Like, yes, obviously there are people in Israel who believe that it was in Israel's national security. This is debatable, but they believe that it's in Israel's interest to degrade the conventional military of Iran, even taking out the nuclear piece. And then on top of that, obviously Netanyahu was dealing with a political crisis of his own at home and was desperate to be on a war footing in order to stay in power and avoid having to serve time, frankly, on his corruption conviction if he were to leave office. So, but she does a good job of sidestepping having to say that, which is the obvious answer to that question.
Yeah, I think, there's so much to be said for Israel's position here. I have not found a single person in my life who doesn't have a very strong connection to that country who has been defending it lately. And I think that this gets to Netanyahu is like the United States, the Israelis have a problem of a leader who cannot think even medium term, forget long term, and doesn't realize that this war has completely beyond whatever military losses, which it seems like this has not made them safer in even in the short term, Israel, because Iran has more leverage. But they have alienated so many people in their most important, in the country of their most important ally. And I don't see them being able to turn this back, even with a better leader than Netanyahu. There are too many people who've gotten burned here. Even like a lot of the people who I know who have been staunch defenders and were absolutely appalled, as I was, and I know you were after October 7th, and were willing to like have a pretty open mind about the country's ability to retaliate after October 7th, can't look at what's happening now with the way that they pulled our country into this war and also sacrificed their own country's standing and say, yeah, this is a good partner. You know, like they're not a good partner, and they've really burnt themselves in the long term here. You know,
Netanyahu has done generational damage to Israel's standing in the world, and frankly, to Jews around the world. I mean, like even putting aside for a moment the catastrophic damage he's done to Gaza and to human beings of equal importance through the violence that he's perpetrated since October 7th, that went way beyond a response to October 7th. I mean, speaking for myself, I'm a Jew who did a birthright trip to Israel in my 20s. I don't know what people use as the definition of Zionism anymore. To me, it was always just to be somebody as a Jew to believe that there is a place for a homeland for Jews in the Middle East that is Israel. I never considered that to require you to believe that it couldn't coexist with Palestinians, or that there shouldn't also be a state of Palestine, or that it means you have to believe in certain borders. Or I never, I suppose if I was, by the old definition, I guess I was not a particularly strong Zionist, but still consider myself one under that definition. I'm a Jew who believes there should be a homeland for Jews, and then doesn't go beyond that level, doesn't say what should be here and not here, and it should, and that any of that. And it's just made it where it's hard for me to even say that publicly because of how Netanyahu has acted. I mean, like little stuff, man. I think like about how 4 years ago during the World Baseball Classic, Team Israel obviously had no chance, but my wife and son and I would wake up early in the morning and we would watch Team Israel try to win games in the World Baseball Classic. We did not do that this last time. We felt no compunction to do that. Now, that is a tiny, maybe trivial example, but I think it's comparable to, the way probably Catholics have felt over the last 20 years or 30 years dealing with revelations about the way the church had handled priests and molestation charges.
Yeah, we flipped from Catholic to, I mean, I don't know what I would call myself, but my mom flipped to Catholic to Episcopal during that. The problem for Jews is if there's one Judaism and
always be a Jew,
there's one country, you know?
I had a really warm and strong connection and meaningful one to Israel. And now I don't know how to feel. And like, that's sad. It makes me sad. And especially because, for instance, like a few years ago, my son watching the World Baseball Classic before any of this happened, he wanted like an Israel baseball hat. We didn't end up getting one. And before all this happened, I thought, oh, we'll do this. I would never let my son go out wearing one now because I'm worried that people would take it as a political statement and target him with comments that he wouldn't understand.
Did you see this clip circulating of this woman they interviewed in Maine where she was asked, it was a setup question, admittedly, but like, I'm sure they asked her, the first part was, do you have a problem with this tattoo that Plattner had? And she said no. And then they were like, would you have a problem if you had like the flag of Israel? And she said yes. And I was like, forget listeners whether you agree with that or not. I do think that juxtaposition is tough to listen to, but like that is a hard place to come back from. Like there are people everywhere who had no pre-existing like deep connection to this question whatsoever, and now it's like a central voting issue. I'm sitting in Manhattan right now where we have a congressional race that will be decided. Lander will probably be my next congressman, and he's running on one issue that he himself has flipped on because he saw where the political winds were going. So this is a defining issue for a generation. And that country, Netanyahu, and look, we have our own leader who sucks and who doesn't think long term. So this is not to say anything of the people of that country. I in some ways sympathize deeply.
Totally.
You can have a crappy leader like we do, and it can destroy you.
And I would interject that just like here, if you look at the polls, if there were an election today, Netanyahu would be thrown out in a millisecond. And that's been the case for a couple of years, which is why he's doing everything he can to hang on to, there's an ongoing war, so we can't have an election.
Right. Well, let's actually take a break now. And then when we come back, we'll talk Epstein, just explosive stuff from the New York Times on Epstein. We'll talk about Trump walking off an interview, trip to Madison Square Garden, a little bit of 60 Minutes when we get back.
I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but I bought something recently that looked amazing online and it was so bad. I thought I did everything right too. I checked the reviews, I compared options, I watched YouTube videos. And then it showed up and I was like, this was not what I ordered. The quality was off. The reviews clearly weren't real. And now I'm stuck dealing with returns, shipping, refunds, the whole thing. Not sure if I'll ever get my money back. And that's the worst part about shopping online now. It's like you can't tell what something is, whether if it's really truly quality or not. And it's easy to pick the wrong thing. And that's why I wish I had used dupe.com's new research for me tool before I bought it. A few days later, I'm about to buy something new. I just moved into this new apartment. I'm buying tons of stuff. And already, things are dramatically different. And so instead of risking another disaster, I took the exact same search and put it to dupe.com research for me. And I completely have a totally different experience. No ads at the top, no sponsored best pick that someone paid for. I just walked through, looked at the options, was able to clearly assess whether something was good, whether it was worth it, and why. And I'm thinking, sitting there, saying, you know what? This would have saved me from the last purchase I made, and saved me a ton of time. And I feel good about what I'm buying now. I don't have to wince when I'm opening the box, worry that something's going to come out that's totally different than what I paid for. And so you should give dupe.com a look, and type in something like, hey, comfortable couch under $1,000 and see what comes in, just to see what it looks like. Or just, search for things that you've long had on your list, and didn't have the time to research. And you'll go through a bunch of options. It'll pull real sources from people you can actually trust. It'll filter out sponsored links and recommendations, and it'll give you a straight answer on what to buy and why. And you'll also get a full breakdown on features, specs, and pricing. And my favorite part, it actually tells you what not to buy too. So it actually takes a position, which can save you from making a really expensive mistake. So if it takes research to buy it, let Dupe do it for you. Stop wasting time comparing options. Just go to dupe.com and tell it what you're looking for. That's dupe.com to feel finally confident about what to buy.
ED is way more common than most guys think. Millions of guys deal with it at some point, and that's exactly why HIMS offers a straightforward way to handle it. HIMS connects you with a licensed healthcare provider online, giving you simple access to legitimate ED treatment options from home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines. Just complete a simple online intake, and a provider will review your information to determine if treatment is right for you. And if subscribed or prescribed, your treatment ships directly to your door in discreet packaging. And that includes sildenafil, also known as the generic for Viagra, and it's available through HIMS at 95% less than the brand name version. And if that option isn't right for you, there are additional treatment options available so that you can find what works best for your body. And it's straightforward, transparent, and designed to make getting care feel easy. To get simple online access to personalized affordable care for ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/majority. That's hims.com/majority for your free online visit. hims.com/majority. Prescription required. See website for details and important safety information. Sildenafil is the generic version of Viagra. Viagra is a registered trademark for Viatris Specialty LLC. HIMS is not affiliated with or endorsed with Viatris. Put away the heavy layers. It's time for breathable, durable clothes that move with you and can keep up with anything you put on your spring calendar. Mack Weldon has updated closet staples like stretch twill chinos that go with everything, and button-ups that keep you looking sharp from morning coffee to that dinner date. Discover upgraded basics, fresh styles, and more at MackWeldon.com, plus 20% off your first order of $125 or more with the code MIDAS. The Ace collection by Mack Weldon is perfect for staying comfy and looking good. The fit is super comfortable and a confidence boost, knowing you'll look good without even trying. Mack Weldon is my go-to. And you know, around this time of year in New York, like some days it's cool, some days it's super hot. And that's why I love all the different options that Mack Weldon has to offer. And they balance the classic pieces with updated details to keep you looking sharp, not flashy, just classic, always in style, and made from the world's most comfortable performance materials. It's easy to style and versatile. And it looks like so you don't have to think about it. It's effortless. I have a hard time saying that word, by design. With the Ace line, ease and self-assurance have never been more comfortable. Crazy comfortable, but elevated sweatpants, shorts, sweatshirts, even blazers, if you're lucky enough to grab one while they are in stock. And there's, you know, they have these all new relaxed sweatpants, which I'm wearing right now, carpenter sweatpants, classic sweatpants, available in 5 new colors. Mack Weldon is the go-to choice for guys who want to look great without even trying. Mack Weldon clothes are designed to fit your style and the demands of modern life. Get moving with Mack Weldon, comfortable anywhere. Go to mackweldon.com and get 20% off your first order of $125 or more with the promo code majority. That's MACKWELDON.com, code majority. All right. Well, we were just treated with a chapter from Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan's upcoming book, all about the Trump administration. And there's a lot we could talk about here, but this centers on the sort of the Epstein saga. And there were just a couple things that stood out to me in this. One is, you know, Vance is definitely well sourced. You find him all over this, like his imprints, where he's always painted in the most sympathetic light in a lot of these stories, whether, you know, in other situations like the Iran war, where he wants to make sure everybody knew he objected to it, to in this situation where he is like arguing in these meetings for complete transparency and you know, sending all the files out, you know.
And to be clear, when you say well sourced, for the audience, this isn't picking up your lingo, you mean the source for a lot of these stories is clearly Vance,
him and the people around him.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they're basically doing like old school work to make sure that these stories reflect him positively. Now, how much that matters now in this new age of media, I'm not sure, but that was noticeable. The second thing was noticeable,
and I think the other is clearly Bongino.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go, which is like this. He was just incensed about all of this stuff. Part of it's funny because he kept referring to his sacrifice he made by giving up his podcast, which I'm like, God, like.
Well, I don't know how much people know about the details, so should we? Let's
go for it.
Them.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So according to the book, the day that the memo was released, Bongino showed up to a daily Justice Department meeting with the FBI staff and the Attorney General. He was, according to this, he was in a volcanic mood. So, which is how
it's not hard to
not hard to figure out who was the source here when we're able to say what his mood was. And plus he's quoted at length. As soon as he entered the room, he erupted at Bondi, shouting at her, "You effed," he didn't say effed, "you effed this thing up from the start," Bongino yelled, "the way you've been talking about this, that dumb effing charade with the Epstein files, the they're on my desk nonsense, all the promises to the folks out there." Patel and Bongino both subsequently told a White House official that Bondi needed to resign. 2 days later, on July 9th, the two men were summoned to a meeting with Wiles, which is chief of staff, and Bondi in the Situation Room complex. Now, we had heard that they had called a Situation Room meeting to talk about the Epstein files, but this confirms it, which is quite something. They were the last to enter the small wood-paneled room. Seated around the table were Bondi, Wiles, Blanche, and Taylor Budowich, one of Wiles's deputies. The moment Bongino sat down, Wiles told them that she had been informed he leaked a sensitive story about Epstein and Trump to ABC News. "I'll tell you what," Bongino replied, "I'll give you $100,000 cash right now. I'm not kidding. Walk out to West Exec, put that reporter on speaker, and get him to admit I leaked it. $100,000. Wiles snapped back, "Well, we all got ourselves into this," and Bongino cut her off. No. We didn't get ourselves into anything. I warned you guys about this the whole time, and you ignored me, and exactly what I said was going to happen happened, and now you're pretending I was in on this. I was never in on this." I mean, clearly this is Bongino as the source. Bongino's aggressive response to Wiles startled the others. She was the White House chief of staff, essentially a stand-in for the president. Wiles put Bongino on the spot. "Going forward," she said, "we're all in. We're all going to agree to move forward. Are you in or not? No, I'm not, Bongino said. This is not my plan. I'm not part of this going forward. Forget it. I'm out of here. He stormed out of the Situation Room and onto West Executive Avenue, where he climbed into the back of Patel's armored SUV and directed the driver to take him to FBI headquarters. Some of Bongino's close friends hoped he would resign right then, an act of protest that would have made him a MAGA martyr and only increased his following. So again, like now he's like, I was trying to be a team player. But White House advisors intervened, urging him to stay. If he quit over Epstein and went public, it could severely damage the president. Bongino told associates he would remain for Trump's sake and keep pushing for more Epstein information to be released. So again, this is him being like, hey, Mr. President, just so you know, like I still had your back the whole way.
Yeah.
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah.
There's more. You want me to keep going?
Yeah. Let's pause there for a second, because then there's like that other part of the saga, which I think we can bookend for this. There was this other moment where that Situation Room meeting is going on and they're talking about all their options. And what's astonishing is they're just floating buying off Ghislaine Maxwell. Like that was like an astonishing part of this, which is you knew this was happening, but I always pictured it in much smaller meetings. You know, just,
maybe some whispering.
Yeah. They're just being like, what if
tone?
we moved her to the right place, or we gave her a pardon? They're talking openly about it, right? And I found that interesting. But yeah, there's another part of this which I hadn't really understood this. Did you know this detail?
Vaguely. I have not. My Epstein list Trump crossover trading cards are not up to date all the way. But so here's what it says. It says, suddenly, one of the officials in the Situation Room raised the subject of a disturbing but uncorroborated accusation against Trump that had come to light in unsealed filings from a 2015 defamation case brought by Virginia, I never know how to say this name, Giuffre? I'm not sure, but against Maxwell, which had been settled 2 years later. The secondhand accusation alleging a specific type of sexual abuse was the perfect example of something that would show up on the public website and put the spotlight on Trump, whether it was true or not. Giuffre, who had met Epstein when she was a teenage spa attendant at Trump's club Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, became one of the sex offender's most outspoken victims. She later stated in late 2016 that to her knowledge, Trump had done nothing improper. She died by suicide in April 2025, 3 months after Trump returned to power. The old Giuffre case file included emails sent to a journalist by another Epstein victim, Sarah Ransom, who later sued Epstein and Maxwell. Epstein had also settled that case. In the emails, Ransom claimed that she knew a girl in Epstein's sex trafficking ring named Jen, who said she had sex with Trump. Ransom also claimed that Jen had told her that Trump had a predilection for nipples and that he had aggressively flicked and sucked hers. Ransom wrote that she had seen evidence when she shared a bathroom with Jen. Quote, they looked incredibly painful as they were red and swollen, and I remember wincing when I looked at them, she wrote. Ransom's credibility was not uncomplicated. She had made another claim that she possessed video footage of prominent men having sex with young girls in Epstein's entourage. She later retracted the claim, saying she feared for herself and her family if she proceeded. But after a federal judge ordered the unsealing of some of the Giuffre case files in 2023, the document that connected Trump to the claim about abused nipples was among the material that came out. It was an unconfirmed allegation. It had not been made publicly, but the disclosure led to some articles that were quickly lost in the swirl of election year news. So, to finish this part, though, what's important here is some of Trump's advisors in the Situation Room had never heard of the nipple claim. Those who had seemed to have only a passing familiarity with it, those who had only had a passing familiarity with it, and many in the room thought this was all just discredited nonsense. But it might not matter. The Ransom emails could get new attention if they were included in a, quote, public-facing and searchable Epstein library. They carried the branding of the Justice Department. An administration official had already searched, which was also a thing everybody suspected, for Trump-related materials on the still private test version of the website, and the nipple material was among the first items to show up. None of the credibility issues would come into consideration if a government-endorsed database gave Ransom's claim about Trump a stamp of validity. So then they're sitting there talking, they're saying, that's out there, one of the officials told the group, and they're going to make a huge scene of this, even though it's not true and everybody knows it. Blanche argued that in context, the Ransom document and Ransom's disavowal of some of her other claims would make clear why the allegations related to Trump had never been pursued for prosecution. Besides, these allegations were already available online because of what had been unsealed, so there was no reason to leave them off the Justice Department website. The vice president said he thought the president would be okay with releasing the nipple-related documents, arguing that Trump had been accused of worse. quote from Vance, apparently. I think we should put it out. He said it would cause people to say we're going further than we need to. Wiles quickly responded, this is the president's chief of staff, that the president would not, in fact, be okay with it.
Yeah, no shit.
It was a point no one wanted to continue debating. One official later described it as a, quote, surreal experience to be discussing nipples in the White House Situation Room. And scene.
I mean, this is good stuff. I don't read a lot of these books. I'm definitely buying this book. Yeah. Wow. And good. I think my agent represents this book. I mean, he's going to make a pretty penny on this. God, what chaos. But again,
Ravi, they're in the Situation Room discussing Trump and Epstein.
Again, Vance gets in his version of the story perfectly here, that if you're Vance and you're in that room and you can't not be in that room, this is what you wanted to say. So
absolutely, we should have put it all out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's what he's going to be saying on the campaign trail in 2028.
It's perfectly calibrated to be like, put it all out there because Trump knows it won't damage him. So it's almost like framed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like he's threading that needle. I don't think I mean, I don't want to say I don't think you and I have had some tough predictions about Vance in the past. I think it's hard for him to overcome a lot of this stuff, but he's doing everything he can to work the traditional Washington avenues. This and Iran, very inconvenient for him.
Oh, he knows that on the one hand, if he wants to be the nominee for president, he has a gift and that he is the vice president.
Right.
And on the other hand, he has an albatross around his neck, which is he is Trump's vice president.
Right. Right. And I just got to call the balls and strikes here. He did what he needed to do in that story. I mean, he's clearly one of the benefits of being in such a incredibly incompetent clown car of an administration is that if you just do a moderately adequate job of the old Washington sort of comms work, you can do pretty good work to get your perspective in these stories. Yeah. Well, okay. Trump, that same NBC interview that we talked about earlier, Trump actually walked out of this interview, and for the video audience, that will be apparent, but for the audio audience, at a certain point here, he just gets up and leaves.
Also, for the audio audience, just so you can picture this, I believe they're supposed to be in Wisconsin. I can't remember where they are, but clearly, I don't know if it was NBC or Trump or both. They had set this up where it's obviously like a studio of some kind or some setup thing, but there's like hay and a tractor in the background. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Kind of funny.
And you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC, and CBS, and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked network. So let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain.
I know. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
On and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr. President,
a country can never be great with a dishonest press.
We traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
It should be noted what prompted this was her asking questions about him continuing to try to indict and investigate people related to the 2020 election and refusing to give up the ghost on the obvious sham of a theory that it was stolen from him and a hoax. And then he launches into this whole thing about how obviously the Republicans are being screwed over in California because it's taking 5 days to count the votes and there's fraud happening right in front of our eyes. And he's just like, sounds like he always does, like a poster on a message board. And that's when he decided to storm out.
And a guy, he says the dishonest media, it's tough. Because I think one of the things he got upset about a couple of days later was that the media mischaracterized his reception here in my city of New York. And so, listeners, let's allow you to be the judge of this. First, let's start with Trump's appearance at Madison Square Garden. And when they flashed his face on the Jumbotron, here's what the audience did. The crowd. So clear booze.
You know, I've seen lots of these videos when he shows up at football games or whatever, and it oftentimes it'll get me to click on it because it'll say like overwhelmingly booed, and then you watch and you're like, there are definitely some boos, and usually you're like, but also you can hear some cheers. In that one, I don't know about you, I could not detect any cheers.
No,
it was all boos.
Trump detected them. This is what he had to say about it.
Mark, did you see Mayor Mamdani at the game?
I did not, no.
What did you think of the reception you got from the Knicks fans tonight?
I thought great. I mean, I thought it was amazing, actually. You mean when they had the camera on me? I thought it was very good, yeah. It was certainly amazing. It was. I think mostly cheers. It was loud and it was very enthusiastic.
Now I have a question for you, and think deeply about this because it's not actually as obvious an answer as you think. Do you think Trump believes he was cheered?
No, I think you can tell. Usually, I mean, oftentimes I would say, yeah, he could delude himself. In that case, the way he's answering that question, he's not leaning into it the way, because he knows what people are saying about it, and he's not leaning into it the way he usually would when he's vehemently denying something that is factually obvious. And he's a little half-hearted. He's saying, it was mostly cheers. I was enthusiastic, that's for sure. That's him having a hard time fully putting on the lie, I think.
I truly don't understand why he came to this game. He fell asleep in the middle of it. He had to know he was going to be booed. He didn't seem that interested in the game. And Coulter, of all people, called him selfish and narcissistic for this. Said of all the things he's done, this is the absolute worst, which I'm not sure I would agree with that. But she's talked about the inconvenience, the extra security. I know a lot of people who are unloading their tickets, which are very expensive because they didn't want to have to go through all that. And they canceled the watch party outside, which has become a big cultural event in New York outside of the stadium. And Stephen A. Smith also pointed this out. Trump then did a video and tweeted out, and most recently this morning at 5:30 in the morning, that Stephen A. Smith is low IQ and that if he ran for president, he'd lose and all this. So, I mean, obviously a guy with his priorities straight. Jason, I'm concerned that he cursed us. You know, as a Bills fan, there was a lot of speculation here that Trump would, we won 13 straight games until this, and then we lost. And we're recording this on Wednesday before Game 4. And I just have this feeling out there. Like, there's a lot of bad karma in New York right now. A lot of people were saying, Nixon 4, and you were with me during an event in which it seemed all but certain that my team was going to win. And I turned to the Bills fans behind me saying, this shit ain't over yet.
And it wasn't.
It wasn't over. Yeah. I've forgotten about what that event was, but I vaguely remember something like that. Yeah. But I'm worried. And I even took to the pages of our daily news this morning, and I couldn't believe they took this. I emailed them yesterday. I was like, hey, I wrote this really stupid thing about how we can lift the Trump curse. And they gave me half a page of the daily news this morning.
It was a great article.
5 ideas of how we can lift it. So hopefully somebody takes me up on that today. And
people should go and find it. It's a fun read.
Well, another thing that I saw you repost this on your Instagram. Scott Pelley was fired from 60 Minutes and gave, I thought, a very interesting New York Times interview this morning. Not this morning, this weekend. And here is just one clip of what he had to say.
Barry Weiss sends an email to my boss, Tanya Simon. 2 of the things in the email include, can we make the protesters look more violent? Now, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the quote, but that's what was communicated to me. And the other thing was Renee Good's car. You need to describe her as driving toward the officer. This is not what you see on the video. On the video, you see the officer standing slightly off the front of the car, and you clearly see Miss Good's wheels turned completely as far as they will go, away from the officer. But he shoots her. in the head, kills her, and says something about her in that moment that I can't repeat in polite company. So we have gone out of our way in our plan from the very beginning to show the protesters for the responsibility that they had. We had already scrubbed the video archives looking for those scenes, but it somehow wasn't enough for Ms. Weiss. The video showed that the officer wasn't standing in front of the car and she wasn't driving toward him, but that's what the president said about that, and that's the way she wanted it described.
It's a very specific accusation, and there's a lot that he, the way I was looking at this is like, my instinct is always to side with 60 Minutes and, have been very uneasy about this merger and how it went down, and Trump's role in pushing out Netflix and advocating for his guy in Ellison. And so I think like there's like a predisposition to take seriously any accusations of bias in this media outlet. And what I find interesting is Pele is making very specific accusations. And to me, it's up to Weiss to counter with a specific refutation. Like if somebody's going to accuse you of that kind of bias, who's that high profile, you've got to come back with, in my opinion, like an actual rebuttal. Otherwise, we have to assume that you're a mouthpiece for this administration.
Well, and if nothing else, she could go in, do a quick search, find that email and produce it.
Right.
If that's not what it says. Right. And he even says, I'm not quoting directly from it. I'm telling you what I was told was in it. Right. And she could, without even having to call Scott Pelley a liar of any type, she could just say, well, he misinterpreted the way that was relayed to him. And here's proof. Like that could be done, And I will say, I said this last week because I talked about my experience being a subject of a 60 Minutes piece, I guess, over the course of 6 months. That was like, I don't know, a year before the takeover happened. So, original, 60 Minutes as it was for the vast majority of our parents' lives. And the way that they were meticulous about the copy and exactly how they were going to phrase everything is really the best of journalism. I mean, I can remember them calling me with follow-up questions long after the interviews to say, hey, is it accurate to say this? Okay, you said this. We want to phrase it this way. Is that accurate? And then calling other people, not just me, to corroborate that the way that and that was not for like a controversial political piece that was for what was essentially like a human interest story that had like some political tone to it, but very little. And so I can absolutely see where somebody like Scott Pelley was like driven away by that.
Yeah. And I mean, the stakes are very high because it's the same group that's going to be taking over CNN. And, he said some interesting things because like this was true of the Colbert debate where I'm like, like one could make an argument that the show was too expensive, yada, 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 and you can go back and forth. Whereas this one, I hadn't realized, but he was talking about how they've been growing their audience and all this. So it's like, there's a hard business case to make. I have a hard time believing that the changes that she's making are going to actually improve this show's business standing. So once you remove the business case, right? Like let's say they don't actually produce like 9% growth in actually like old school television
media environment
is a miracle.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, if you look at it, one, it was the last truly trusted, truly seen as unbiased by the vast majority of the country news banner in the United States. When we did that 60 Minutes piece, it was, it featured us and it featured the Afghan family that we brought over, and they had no experience with like American news, and so their experience was all of their coworkers were like, wow, you were on 60 Minutes. I mean, it is still that level of brand. Like everybody they knew, everybody they encountered, it wasn't like, some people saying, I saw a clip of the thing on CNN. Everybody watched it. And especially because it comes on after football on Sundays, everybody watches it. And if you look at their online presence, it was growing a ton because it's actually, unlike most news programs that are opinion laden and everything else, it's a hard news show that was kind of built for the clip world. So it was doing really well on social media, doing really well on YouTube. I don't think, any business case for changing things. There was only a political case.
Yeah. And this guy Bilton, who he's written some books I really like, just seems like he's flubbed this. Goes in and he's reading a statement off of his phone. They, in this meeting later on, they accused Pele of physically doing something to Bilton, which seems clearly untrue. And these are all things, again, like Pele saying this, like these could easily be refuted, and they would be if they were false. Like they wouldn't waste any time to point this out.
No, what they did in the wake of these allegations is they fired him and they fired his bosses. They fired the executive producers. They just cleaned house. They didn't refute it.
Yeah. Tina Brown, who actually has been a big Bari Weiss booster, had a good newsletter essentially saying this is just chaos. And I think that's a sign because she has been in Bari Weiss's corner from the get-go. So I think it's hard to defend any of this kind of stuff. And I think this is a measure of arrogance. Like this is in her and the Ellisons are people who, especially her and the whole Free Press Project has been about, let's call out the media bias of the liberals and all that. And I'm like, I don't know how many times I got to see this now where I'm like, you had an opportunity because sometimes what you were calling out actually is real. I'm susceptible to that argument. But then when you come in and do it 50 times worse, right? Like this is a wet dream. If this were Biden and the Soroses taking over 60 Minutes and massaging stories like this, there would be a riot. Well, this would be what Jon Stewart would call a moment of zen, but our folks at Midas took a video of Representative Rob Whitman, Republican of Virginia, being asked about Social Security cuts, the potential of Social Security cuts, and Mike Johnson's comments about this. And for the audio audience, what we're about to see is him pretending to be on the phone, but you could very clearly see that his screen is on and that he's not on the phone. But let's go to that clip.
Congressman, what is Mike Johnson's secret plan to cut Social Security?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah, I'll be there in just a few minutes.
No response, sir?
I'm heading your way right now. Yeah, it's over at 416.
Congressman, what is Mike Johnson's secret plan to cut Social Security?
Listen, I appreciate that. I've got some more efforts that I want to talk to you about. There are actually more things that we have to be working on. Yeah, I want to make sure that we're
no response, sir.
Yeah, listen, thanks. I appreciate your help on this. I really do need some more of your input. Yeah, if you can actually reach out, I'll make sure that we do more of this. Yeah, listen, I really appreciate.
We could go on for longer. This apparently went on for a while.
Oh yeah, it went on for quite some time. He was really dedicated to the bit. I mean, he committed. A few mistakes he made. As someone who's done this,
I've done this for sure, and I am careful about how I do it. Yeah.
So for me, I had to do this a lot in 2016 and a little bit in 17 and 18. In 16, I've never done this to actually dodge like a reporter. I've never done that. But in 16, when I was running for the Senate, they had a tracker who followed me everywhere and the way that they would do that, they don't use trackers as much anymore, I don't think. But the way they would do it is they would shout really inflammatory, like wild questions at you. And then the idea was they wanted to get a clip of you either taking the bait and acknowledging the question and giving a bad answer, or just ignoring them, because then they would turn that into TV ads. So they would, yell things at me like, do you think Hillary killed so-and-so or whatever, stuff like that, that they were going to try and use. So this happened to me like every day in 2016. And it happened to me somewhat when I was traveling nationally to run in like 17, 18, but it wasn't daily because they didn't always know where I was going to be. They always knew where I was going to be in state in 16. So the way I handled it, and different people had different approaches, is I would oftentimes I would actually just call my wife, and I would just be, oh, there goes my thumbs up in the Zoom thing. Anyway, I would call her and I would just have a conversation. But when I wasn't doing that, what I would do is I would turn to a staffer and I would just start talking about the Royals, like what was going on with the Kansas City Royals. And that way it was like you were shouting questions at me, but I was in a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
But I prided myself on the idea that I never repeated the same thing, so that I would make the tracker go through all this footage over and over and over again. And my objective was, it was a fun game I played with myself. I wanted this tracker, who actually was from out of town and had just come to town for the race. I wanted him to be deeply knowledgeable about the Royals and their farm system by the end of the campaign. And so I would like really go deep, and I'd be talking about what was going on in AA and all that kind of stuff. Now, a friend of mine, actually, I can say who, because I don't think he cares. It's funny. Al Franken, what he used to, the other thing is, the mistake that this guy made is, you got to have the back of your phone toward the person. If you have your phone exposed the way he does, they're going to see that you're not on a real call.
Right.
But what Al Franken told me he used to do is, with the trackers, is he would have the exact same pretend conversation with his daughter, who was not on the phone, over and over again. And that conversation was that she was looking into leasing an apartment or renting an apartment in New York City. And so he just over and over again had the same conversation that was just him being like, yeah, how many square feet is it? Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, how far up? Is there an elevator? You know, he just said he did that like 50 times. And I thought that was very funny.
This is a thing you encounter in New York, is if you're going to Union Square or whatever, there are tons of people trying to solicit you for all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I just have my headphones or earpods in, and I just do the phone thing like this, even if I'm probably just listening to music or a podcast, and people generally back away there.
That's a good point. That's what he should have done. Put in some AirPods and then just pretend you're on a call. We can't tell.
Yeah. Well, okay. What's happening in your world? World Cup, I would imagine, coming soon. No?
Yeah, World Cup in Kansas City. That's pretty exciting. Things are pretty exciting here from that point of view.
Are there any teams camped out there? I know that I saw that like the Spanish were in Chattanooga.
Argentina,
good job by them. Good city.
Messi's going to be playing here. That's a very big deal. They've been here. It's fun to watch all the news reports about all these European teams trying to come up with tricks to acclimate themselves to the heat.
Yeah, I saw that. The British were down in Florida, I saw.
Right. And I think that they're actually supposed to be camped out here in Lawrence. And so like, just because of when the games are, they were like, okay, it's not as hot in Kansas City now when they started practicing as it will be when the games are. So they went to Florida to practice, and they'll come back up. And it is really getting hot. You know, the other day, I guess it was last night, I had a baseball game, and it wasn't like, it was only like 85, 86. It wasn't that hot, but the humidity is starting to set in. And that first day of like really serious humidity, first of all, I don't really mind the heat in I like, as you know, I don't like being cold. So I will take like 100 degrees anytime. Yeah. But I did notice, I was like, oh, it is like you're outside for 20 minutes and you are drenched like you just got out of the pool.
Yeah.
And so it is interesting to watch these European teams get used to this.
Yeah, man, I'm feeling you. The World Cup started. Steve Nash was doing an event, right? And you probably see those videos I post where I play tennis, like on the concrete. They turned it into a Steve Nash fundraiser where they had kids playing like that short. I forget what they call it, that short soccer, which was really cool. New York is just crazy right now. Yeah. So there's all kinds of events starting to happen around the city. We also have the Tribeca Film Festival going on. We also, of course, have the Knicks, which to me is like such a huge thing. I mean, people have different minds of this. There are like so many new Knicks fans, and some people who are like the old school sufferers are like, what? Like, but I'm like, that's great. Like, it's how you kind of welcome people into the city.
Absolutely.
Everybody wears their Knicks gear everywhere. I'm a little worried, as somebody who's been through this, as you know, what could be down, what we could be in store for.
Wemby is two humans in a trench coat. He's going to be.
Yeah,
hard
I mean, we got him and the refs, Jason. So it's a lot.
It's always with the refs with the New York fans.
So I'm a little concerned, but I'm trying to enjoy it in the moment. I went to Madison Square Garden on Friday for the watch party, not the actual. I'm not throwing $10,000 of tickets, but it was $10 to go to Madison Square Garden. It was amazing. All the old players were there.
That was cool.
And it's actually what the game should feel like. I think Van Jones said that like these games are starting to feel like the Met Gala, like the regular games. This is what it reminded me of when I was a kid and I used to go, and it's very working class, like people from all around the city. And then you walk outside and game 2 that was where it was like a really tough win at the end. You go outside and it was people everywhere. I mean, it was almost like it was almost like a rally outside. And so it's cool. The city is electric right now. We have another game tonight. So, if we win this one, I feel good. But man, if we lose, it's going to be tough out here. So we'll see.
There is nothing like sports to create a real sense of belonging and community. And I know that I sometimes make a meal out of rooting against New York sports, but I cannot come up with a reason to root against the Knicks. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
For one thing, if anything, I guess I should root for him. I'm a Thunder fan, and it's the Spurs that beat the Thunder.
Yeah.
So, and also, as I think I texted you, I think you have at least 3 Missourians on that Knicks team, including one very much from Kansas City. So
they play a good brand of basketball, and they all know each other. It's been fun to watch them. And at the moment they have this sort of confidence that my other franchise, which shall remain nameless, doesn't have. It's like watching this all happen is almost like, I think, what I imagine somebody who gets married after their spouse dies feels like, which is like you can enjoy that experience, but every now and then it reminds you of what could have been. So every time I'm like a little bummed sometimes, because I'm like, New York is New York. If this were happening in Buffalo, as you know from Kansas City, which is a bigger city than Buffalo, but not as big as New York, it's like it would just mean so much more to that city.
Right.
So, and that's all I keep thinking about. And I'm trying to just take that out of my head. It's like, God.
It's also interesting the way, you got Dolan, who clearly is a Trump guy and a friend of Trump and owns the team and has all sorts of problems as the owner there, that, in terms of the way the fans view him. But you got to love the way that while casual fans who are like, don't have a team, you'll often hear them choosing who they're going to root for in a finals or in a Super Bowl or in a playoffs based on like the politics of the players or the owners. But what you are always brought back to is that the people who have been fans of the team for a long time or who live in the town, they don't care about any of that because they don't really see the team as belonging to that guy or gal.
No,
the team, he's simply a custodian as he moves through and owns it for a period of time, and it's their team. And I'm always interested in that because so often, for instance, with the Chiefs, I'm a Chiefs fan, and I don't think my politics and the Hunt's politics line up from what I can see. They own the Chiefs, and I'll get people coming at me online about the politics. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You think it's their team. It's our team.
Right.
They're but the custodian. Yes, they make the money from it, but like it doesn't in the same way that like, yeah, I still listen to Billie Jean because the music belongs to that moment in my life, not to the artist in my life. That's where it sits. So,
right. So we'll see, man. It's interesting times. Yeah. It's
all right.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well,
times.
I'll be rooting for y'all for once.
Oh, thanks,
I'll be
man.
rooting for a New York win a New York sports win of some regard. So, all right, you can find me everywhere at Jason Kander. You can find Ravi everywhere at Ravi M. Gupta. Please leave a 5-star review. Thank you to the Midas Mighty, and remember, we all have a platform. Make sure to use yours today.